We're going to do a demonstration of behavioral therapy. It may have a teensy bit of cognitive tools thrown in there simply because most behavior therapy incorporates some cognitive modalities as well today. And Susan is going to demonstrate a client who comes in with a pain problem. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
How are you doing? How can I be helpful to you?
Well, I'm not sure why I'm here, but because I'm thinking I really belong in the medical community still. I have some nerve damage in my back that gives me a lot of pain. And, when I initially hurt myself, I, had my doctor and surgeon and went through all that and the pain medication, but this has now gone on for an extended period of time. And to the point that my doctor now thinks that I need to see someone like you. But I mean, I had an injury, I'm got pain, I'm not, no offense, but I'm not sure how it is that you help me.
Okay, and that's a good place to start because my experience has been that most people who come in to see me for pain problems are kind of confused why they got sent to a therapist for physical pain. Is your doctor a man or a woman?
Ma'am.
Okay, and the reason I asked that so I know to refer to him as he or she.
Okay.
How much, what did he tell you was the reason for referring you to?
Well, that really didn't tell me a lot, but my assumptions is that he must think that this pain is in my head. I don't know, and I imagine that he does not want to keep prescribing me pain medication.
Okay, so there's a bunch of assumptions, but
I'm not totally sure, though I will say, yeah, it's probably true, some of those are my assumptions. The pain medicine, not as much. I mean, he is concerned about continuing to prescribe.
Okay. So he just sort of said, I think you should see a therapist, or?
Yes, gave me your name specifically, and so I called.
Okay, let me just educate you briefly about what I do, because that's better than having a bunch of assumptions. One of the things I will do is to work with people there's kind of two prongs. One is that if you're having pain problems, while there are physical ways to help pain problems, there are medications, there are surgeries, there are physical therapies, and things you can do with your body. Those sometimes don't do it all. Sometimes they can take care of the problem completely. You can do a surgery or do a procedure and the pain goes away. It sounds like with you there's some residual nerve damage that either hasn't or isn't going to. So what a counselor can do is to help you to learn ways to either diminish the pain through, we have some techniques and so forth, there's some relaxation exercises I can go over with you. There's some exercises to kind of get your mind off of things. There's things you can do with your brain, things you can do with your body to relax that will actually reduce the pain experience, in addition to the things that the docs know how to do. So that's one, is actually reduction of the pain or recognition of that. And the other thing is really taking a look at how the pain's affected your life. Docs don't often have a lot of time for that, but often the impact in your life can be anything from modest to enormous. And sometimes sort of seeing how pain fits in with your life and how it affects you and how your life affects the pain. Looking at that relationship can be really beneficial. So that's kind of how I work.
Well, at this point, I'll tell you, I do voodoo to be out of pain. I'm just tired of being in pain all the time.
And today, unfortunately, we have a very truncated, shortened session just because of time limits. So next time we meet, I'd like to get a real history of what the pain is. But if today you could tell me briefly, because what I'd like to be able to do is to kind of get to maybe some things that could actually help you between now and next session and take a more thorough history next week. So just tell me kind of when it started and what was happening and how long it's been going on.
Had a bicycle accident, fell off a bike we're on a family bike, and I did have some, bony damage. I had some compression fractures and what have you, which, I had the initial treatment and whatever, but after the bones healed as much as they were, I must have had some type of entrapped nerve that I just have a constant, it's a nervy pain. It's not like, a pain that comes and goes. It's just a constant pain like I envision like an open flame.
Okay, and where do you feel that?
In my back.
Okay, and
Yeah, around here.
does it ever radiate down your legs or?
You know what,
arms?
sometimes I feel like almost my whole body is in pain, that it has become more difficult over time for me to localize the pain. I just feel pain now, but yeah, I feel it more down through the lower back in, I guess sometimes even into the hips.
And when was the bike accident?
This was 2 years ago.
Okay. Of the thing, tell me some of the things that you've done to try to take care of the problem.
Well, I stayed in bed initially, because I was like, they couldn't put a cast on that. I actually have been a very good patient. I wore the brace after that, after I returned to school. I gave up athletics. Okay. And I tried heating, I tried warm baths, I had to go back to work eventually. I had used all my sick time.
And what do you do?
I'm a nurse.
Okay, and does your particular nursing involve much lifting?
Not really. Is it because I work in a clinic, so it's not like I do bedside nursing in a hospital. So, I give injections and things like that.
But you're not.
I'm not lifting people. Yeah, my people are mostly very well and come in. But I had used all my sick time, and so I had to go back to work, which meant that I had to use medication to tolerate, to feel well enough to get up and go.
Okay. And so the heat and, heating pads and things like that, how much do they work?
You know what, at some point I think I've almost kind of abandoned those. I think initially I was going through a trial and error type of thing, okay. But at this point I do work. Luckily I don't work full-time. Is I rely on medications, both analgesic and prescribed medication, because it's the only thing that allows me to be functional at work.
Okay. Have you ever tried a thing called the TENS unit?
No.
Okay. And have you been to physical therapy?
No, I didn't really go to physical therapy because I didn't have a problem with the way I walked or anything, and I didn't. It was suggested, but I never had gone.
Okay, and that's something we can kind of talk about, because my experience has been sometimes it's minorly helpful and sometimes it's extraordinarily helpful, so we can kind of look at that. Do you notice over the course of, you said, I just constantly, always am in pain. Do you notice times of the day or things that you do when it gets worse, when it gets better? What's kind of
the worst time of the day is when I get home from work. On the days that I work and I get home, because although I don't lift and stuff, I am on my feet a lot during the day. So I'm like worthless when I get home from work at the end of the day, on the days that I do work. I kind of get into the lazy boy, and the family kind of takes care of me from the rest of that day on.
Okay. And when you say takes care of you, what kind of things?
Well, my daughters are older. They're teenagers, so they cook. I know my husband, if the laundry is out of whack that day, he'll throw a load in for that. I'll have to say, my family has been very kind and understanding, especially that this has been such an extended. I think we need, even though I don't work full time, we need the income, and my husband appreciates the fact that I get up and go to work, even though I'm in pain.
Yeah.
So on the days that I work, I pretty much take my uniform off, get in something comfortable, and try to relax the rest of the evening.
And how have they sort of stepped up to the plate? I mean, some families will, kind of do it, and other families are very happy about taking over. How do you think it's?
Well, I think my husband has been very good. I think very, very understanding about it. The children, trying to get kids to cook and clean for the parent is not always as easy, but they do it. They do it.
Okay. Okay. And so, if you were to kind of just in your head imagine charting your pain from, it's worse when you get home and you're just kind of lie around for the rest of the evening because you hurt so much. When you get up, if we were to go on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being pain-free, 10 being excruciating pain, someone rushed me to the hospital for, injected with Demerol or something. What does it kind of look like over the course of the day?
I wake up slow. I mean, it's not a 10. In fact, I would say most of the time I don't feel that excruciating pain that I did when I first was injured, or else my interpretation of pain has become, you know, flatter or something. Yeah. I don't know if that's the case. But I don't often, I will have to have done something strenuous to feel that 10.
Okay.
But in the mornings, I'm somewhere between probably 6, 7 maybe. Okay. Wake up slow, but once I get up and get going and take my medication is, you know, that will drop down to maybe a 4, 5. Okay. And I will do okay during most of my, you know, the beginning of the work day. The afternoon, I start to creep up, and I think that's mostly because, you know, my dosing is, my medicine is coming down. So in the early afternoon is I leave work by 3. I'm starting to feel more pain, less energy, probably, you know, it's getting back up to 6, 7 again. Okay. By the time I get home, that's my peak, is, you know, probably 7, bad day, maybe 8. And I'll take my medication, I usually do take my medication when I get home, so I'm starting to feel less pain in the evening, you know, probably get back at the 4. Even when I take medication, I still feel some pain. I'm never pain-free. Okay. Maybe back down to 4 or so. But I feel at that point drained and exhausted. So even though I'm not as in much pain, I don't have any energy in the evening either.
Okay, and how's your sleep?
I sleep good at the beginning of the dose, but I never sleep through the night.
Okay.
I always wake up somewhere in the middle, you know, after like 4 hours.
Okay, and when you wake up, is it because you're hurting?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, and then sometimes that can be because I've laid in the wrong position, but sometimes it also can be is that my medication is worn off at that point.
And when you wake up in the middle of the night hurting, what are you thinking about? What's sort of on your mind? If anything. Sometimes it just is like part of life, you know, and it just is something that I do. But sometimes I feel very defeated that I am still in pain. And that I just cannot believe that I'm still in this pain and cannot do anything about it. Okay, so sort of angry and
helpless.
Yes. Yeah. And what do you do? Do you get back to sleep?
Yeah, I'll usually take more medication.
Okay.
So eventually I do.
Okay, so right now it really does seem like the pain meds are what gets you to sleep. Okay. Well, kind of sort of an overview of where we might be going, and then you can pick and choose and see if this makes sense to you. My experience has been that pain is a very multi-layered kind of thing where it's physical, and then the physical sort of bleeds into the psychological, you know, the feelings of anger and helplessness and won't this ever go away. It bleeds into the social, your family is, you know, picking up the ball. We didn't talk about sort of your response to them taking care of you, but that's something we can talk about in the future. Sometimes people are, you know, really feel very loved. At the same time, you know, I feel like, gosh, I'd like to help out more. We can talk some about that. So there's kind of all these fingers that go together. Sometimes it affects people's ability to be intimate with their partner, and we can talk about that in the future and how that impacts a marriage or a relationship. So there's all these fingers that go into different things. There's also some specific things I often ask clients to do in addition to all these things that we can kind of look at. One, between this week and next, I like people to keep what's called a pain diary for at least a week.
Okay.
And I have a copy in my drawer that I can give you. And what it does is it asks you to write down about every hour each day, and then if something comes up, you write something special in there. You know, lifted 300-pound patient, pain shot up to, you know, 10 or something like that. But it's to get a sense of how your pain is during the day, and you sound very aware of that, far more so than a lot of people who come in. And then what it is that you're doing and what your mood's like. Okay. Just to get a sense of how the pain relates to how you're feeling emotionally and how it relates to what you're doing. The idea of a behavioral approach to pain is that if there are certain things you're doing and your pain is worse, maybe we can learn to do less of those or structure your world to do less. If there are certain things you do that you just may have not noticed, and your pain tends to be down around a 2, 3, maybe we can do more of those, or figure out what it is about those things and find things similar to that. So that's the purpose of the pain diary itself. There are some specific tools that we can go over. You talked about it, give a great image. It feels like a fire, it feels like a flame. There's an imagery technique where we'll do this at lengths, where I'll ask you to visualize that flame, and we'll go over different ways to image things. And then to somehow slowly put the fire out in that pain. And sometimes when people sort of visualize that flame right there in their back, and so they imagine it, and then they picture maybe someone spritzing cool water on it or something, sometimes that image in their head of their back will actually soothe that flame down, so it's just little coals, you know, instead of a burning flame. So some specific things we can do. We'll work on some things you can tell yourself, you know, particularly at night. At night there's few distractions. So you wake up and, oh, when is this ever going to be over? And we'll look at your thinking, and are there thoughts you could replace those with, or different ways that you could kind of help yourself get back to sleep at night. And if you're interested, it sounds like your doc is concerned about your use of meds.
Well, you know what, it's just so you don't think I'm like a narcotic addict. I use analgesics during the day. I only use the narcotics at night.
And sometimes people can stay on them for a long time. Sometimes they start eating up your stomach, and then it's harder to stay on them. So we'll see if there's something that you might be able to do to not need them quite as much, perhaps. And if it doesn't work, as long as they're not bothering your stomach, then, you know, the Bayer Aspirin company or whoever would be happy to have your patronage. At the same time, if they start bugging your stomach lining, then it would be good to find an alternative. So it looks like there's a lot of different directions that we can go in.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll do anything at this point, because I'm just tired of being in pain.
Okay. Well, why don't we set up a time to come in again in a few days?
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Susan.